Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. The universe, Ellen decided as her ship screamed through the atmosphere of an uncharted jungle planet, had a personal vendetta against her specifically. Not humanity in general, mind you. Just her, Ellen, former military medic turned cargo hauler who just wanted to deliver her shipment of mining equipment to the outer colonies and maybe, enjoy one quiet month without catastrophic system failures. The wandering ghost, and yes, she was aware of the irony now, shuddered violently as another thruster gave out. Warning klaxons blared in a cacophony that would have been impressive if it weren't so terrifying. Red lights flashed across every console, painting the cockpit in shades of, "You're about to have a very bad day." All right, I get it," Ellen muttered, hands flying across the controls with practiced efficiency. "We're crashing. You don't have to be so dramatic about it." The ship, naturally, ignored her and continued being dramatic. Olari 6 rushed up to meet her, all emerald canopy and bioluminescent patches that glowed even in daylight. Pretty, she thought distantly. Real pretty. Be ashamed to die here. The manual override fought her, sluggish and unresponsive, but Ellen had crashed enough ships in her military days to know the difference between controlled descent and flaming death spiral. This was somewhere in between. Call it aggressive landing with survivable consequences. The ghost clipped the top of the jungle canopy at an angle that would have made her flight instructors weep. Trees exploded around her, branches screaming against the hull. Ellen's harness cut into her shoulders as the ship bucked and twisted. Then the ground, then the sliding, then the horrible metallic shriek of a ship that was definitely not designed for off-road travel. And finally, stillness. Ellen hung in her harness for a long moment, taking inventory. Arms, functional. Legs, present and responding to commands. Head, aching but uncracked. Dignity, as usual, nowhere to be found. "Could have been worse," she said to the empty cockpit, then immediately regretted it. Never say it could be worse. The universe takes that as a challenge. She unbuckled and dropped to the tilted floor, catching herself against the navigation console. The damage report scrolling across the screen was impressively long. Main engine, compromised. Thrusters 2 through 6, offline. Life support, functioning but strained. Communications array, missing entirely. Probably decorating the jungle somewhere 3 clicks back. Auto repair systems, active, estimated time to minimum flight capacity. 3 days, on an uncharted planet, with no way to call for help. "Well," Ellen said, popping open the emergency supplies locker, "at least the rations didn't explode." She spent the next 2 hours making the ghost as secure as possible. Perimeter alarms went up in a rough circle around the crash site. Nothing fancy, just motion sensors linked to her data pad. Emergency beacons stayed on, broadcasting her distress signal to anyone within 5 light-years who cared to listen. The ship itself was tilted at a 20-degree angle, nose down in a crater of its own making, but structurally sound. The auto-repair drones were already at work. Tiny mechanical insects swarming over the damaged engine housing. Ellen stood in the ghost's cargo bay, looking out at the alien jungle, and tried not to think about how many ways this could go wrong. The air was breathable, her suit's analyzer confirmed that much, and the temperature was comfortable. Humid, but comfortable. The sounds of the jungle filtered in, chittering, warbling, the occasional roar of something large and presumably hungry. Just 3 days, she told herself, checking her sidearm for the 6th time. 3 days, Then you're out of here. Easy. That's when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the ambient jungle noise. A whimper, high-pitched and distinctly distressed. Ellen's military instincts warred with her common sense. Common sense said, stay in the ship. Let the jungle sort itself out. Instincts said, something's hurt, and you're a medic, so move. Instincts won. They usually did. She found them 20 meters from the crash site, huddled beneath a massive fern-like plant with leaves the size of solar panels. 3 of them. Feline. No, that wasn't quite right. They had 6 legs instead of 4, and their fur shifted colors like active camouflage. But the overall impression was definitely big cat. Cubs, clearly. Each one about the size of a large dog, with oversized paws and ears that swiveled independently. They were also a mess. The largest had a gash along its shoulder, oozing dark blue blood. The smallest was favoring its front left leg. All 3 were thin, ribs visible beneath that color-shifting fur, and they watched Ellen with eyes that reflected the bioluminescent undergrowth like tiny mirrors. "Oh, no," Ellen said. "No, no, no, I'm not doing this. I'm absolutely not." The largest cub whimpered again, and Ellen swore creatively in 3 languages. 10 minutes later, she'd coaxed all 3 cubs back to the Ghost's cargo bay, with a trail of protein bars. They followed cautiously, clearly desperate enough to trust the strange alien offering food. Ellen worked quickly, her old medic training kicking in as she assessed their injuries. The shoulder wound was deep but clean, probably from a branch during a fall. Ellen flushed it with antiseptic, trying not to notice how the cub's claws, retractable, each one as long as her finger, flexed with discomfort. "Yeah, I know it stings. Don't eat me about it." The cub with the injured leg had a nasty sprain, not a break. Ellen splinted it with supplies from the med kit, wrapping it securely while the cub made a sound somewhere between a purr and a growl. The third seemed mostly exhausted and malnourished, but Ellen checked it over anyway, finding minor scrapes and cuts that she treated, methodically. "There," she said, sitting back on her heels. "Good as new. Well, good as not actively dying, anyway. Now shoo, go find your parents. They're probably worried." The cubs looked at her. None of them moved. "I'm serious. Out. This is a spaceship, not a wildlife rehabilitation center." The largest cub, the one with the treated shoulder wound, limped over and pressed its head against Ellen's knee. The purr growl sound intensified. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." She named them, of course, because she was weak and sentimental, and had apparently learned nothing from her years in the military about not getting attached to things that could die on you. Whisper was the largest, the one with the shoulder wound. It moved almost silently despite its size, and had nearly given Ellen a heart attack by appearing directly behind her while she was running diagnostics on the ship's power core. Rumble was the middle one, named for the deep, constant purring sound it made whenever Ellen was nearby. Its color-shifting fur tended toward darker shades, blacks and deep purples that blended with shadows. Ghost was the smallest, the one with the splinted leg. Its fur stayed pale, whites and silver grays, and it had a habit of staring at Ellen with unblinking intensity that was either adorable or deeply unsettling, depending on her mood. Night fell on Olari 6 like a curtain, and the jungle transformed. The bioluminescent patches Ellen had noticed from above became a light show, painting the landscape in blues and greens and occasional pulses of gold. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't also clearly a hunting ground. The sounds changed, less chittering, more growling. Things moved in the darkness beyond her perimeter alarms. Ellen sat in the cargo bay, door open to the humid air, her sidearm in her lap, and 3 alien predator cubs sleeping in a pile against her back. Whisper's head rested on her thigh. Rumble was sprawled across her feet. Ghost had claimed the space between her shoulder blades, purring softly. "This is fine," Ellen said to the glowing jungle. "This is a completely normal situation. Just a woman, her broken ship, and 3 baby predators that could grow up to eat her. Nothing weird about this at all." A roar echoed through the trees, deep, resonant, and close enough to make Ellen's teeth rattle. The cubs stirred but didn't wake. They felt safe, she realized, with her, the strange alien who'd patched them up and fed them protein bars. "I've made questionable life choices," Ellen informed the universe, "but this might be top 5. The roar came again, closer now. Ellen's hand tightened on her sidearm. The perimeter alarm on the western edge chirped softly, something large moving through the sensor grid. The cubs woke, all 3 lifting their heads in unison. Their ears swiveled forward, tracking something Ellen couldn't see yet. Whisper made a soft, chirping sound. Ghost answered with a trill that climbed in pitch. Then Ellen saw them. Eyes first. Dozens of reflective eyes in the darkness, arranged in pairs at various heights. The bioluminescent patches painted them in fragmentary glimpses. Massive bodies, 6-legged like the cubs but enormous, each one easily the size of a ground transport. Fur that shifted through shadows and moonlight. Teeth that gleamed when the largest one, presumably the alpha, pulled back its lips in what Ellen very much hoped was not a smile. Night stalkers. Had to be. Apex predators, and she was sitting in their territory with their cubs. "Okay," Ellen said quietly, not moving. "Okay, this is fine. Everyone stay calm." The cubs were not calm. All 3 scrambled to their feet, chirping and trilling, tails lashing. But they didn't run toward the adults. They pressed closer to Ellen, forming a protective semicircle around her. Oh no. They'd imprinted on her. The adult night stalkers crept closer, moving with a fluid grace that something that large should not possess. The alpha stopped at the edge of the light spilling from the Ghost's cargo bay. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Head the size of a cargo container, eyes that tracked Ellen with obvious intelligence, claws that gouged furrows in the soil with each step. Ellen did the only thing she could think of. She stood up, slowly, and put herself between the cubs and the adults. "Right," she said, voice steady despite the adrenaline screaming through her veins. "So, hi, I'm Ellen. I crashed here. Not by choice, for the record. And I found your kids. They were hurt. I fixed them. They're fine now. Well, mostly fine. Whisper's shoulder needs another few days, and Ghost shouldn't put weight on that leg for at least a week, but overall they're—" She was babbling. She was absolutely babbling at a pack of apex predators who could end her existence with one swipe. But she kept talking because stopping felt worse. "And I fed them, obviously, because they were hungry. And I know you're probably upset about the strange alien touching your offspring, but in my defense, they came to me, and I'm a medic. Well, former medic. So helping injured things is kind of my whole deal. And the alpha moved. One moment it was at the edge of the light. The next it was directly in front of Ellen. So close she could feel the heat radiating from its body. It lowered its massive head, bringing one eye level with Ellen's face. Ellen stopped breathing. The Night Stalker's eye was amber shot through with gold, with a slit pupil that expanded and contracted as it studied her. Its breath, hot and smelling of meat and something else, something alien, washed over her. One claw extended, large enough to impale her through, and tapped gently against the bandage on Whisper's shoulder. The cub chirped. a questioning sound. The alpha's gaze shifted from Ellen to Whisper, then to Rumble, then to Ghost, with its splinted leg, taking inventory, assessing. Then, impossibly, the massive predator sat back on its haunches and made a sound, a low, thrumming note that vibrated in Ellen's chest. Not aggressive, not threatening, acknowledging. The other adult night stalkers relaxed their postures. Two of them, smaller than the alpha but still enormous, padded forward and began grooming the cubs, rough tongues checking the bandages, sniffing at the splint. The cubs submitted happily, chirping and purring. Ellen released the breath she'd been holding in a long, shaky exhale. "So, we're good? You're not going to eat me?" The alpha regarded her for another long moment, then deliberately turned its back and settled down at the perimeter of the camp. The other adults arranged themselves in a loose circle around the ghost, forming a living barrier between Ellen's ship and the jungle beyond. The cubs bounded back to Ellen, climbing over each other in their enthusiasm to return to the strange human who'd fed them and fixed them, and apparently, somehow, earned their pack's approval. Ellen looked at the adult night stalkers, then at the cubs, then at her broken ship, then up at the alien stars. "I'm going to need so much therapy after this," she said, and sat down to let Whisper, Rumble, and Ghost reclaim their sleeping positions against her. In the trees beyond the night stalker's perimeter, something else watched. Something with scales instead of fur, with targeting optics instead of natural eyes, with intelligence that recognized what it had just witnessed. The watchers in the trees had questions, so many questions, and tomorrow they would begin to find answers. Morning on Olari 6 arrived with all the subtlety of a flashbang grenade. The bioluminescent patches faded as actual sunlight. Twin suns, Ellen noted with mild interest, filtered through the canopy in shafts of gold and amber. The night stalkers had vanished sometime during the night, silent as their name suggested, leaving only enormous paw prints in the soft earth and 3 cubs who seemed perfectly content to treat Ellen as a combination mother figure and heated furniture. "Off," Ellen said, trying to extract herself from beneath Rumble, who had somehow grown heavier overnight. "I need to check the repairs, and also regain feeling in my legs." Rumble purred louder and pressed down harder. "You're a menace. All of you. Menaces." She'd managed to stand, cubs protesting vocally, when her datapad chirped. Movement on the perimeter sensors, western edge, again. Ellen pulled up the feed, frowning at the readout. Something was out there. Multiple somethings, actually, moving with purpose and coordination that suggested intelligence. "Great," she muttered. "More complications. Just what I needed." What Ellen didn't know, couldn't know, was that she'd been under observation since the moment her ship had carved its ugly scar across the jungle canopy. The Nalcari didn't miss much that happened in their territory, and a spacecraft crashing through the primary forest canopy definitely qualified as noteworthy. Commander Ithixel crouched in the upper branches of a massive tree, his scaled form blending perfectly with the bark. His people had evolved for this. Ambush predators turned civilization builders, with all the patience and precision that implied. Through his optical enhancers, he watched the human move around her damaged vessel, checking systems, occasionally pausing to prevent one of the Night Stalker cubs from chewing on essential equipment. "This makes no sense," Lieutenant Joranim whispered beside him, his younger features creased in confusion. "Commander, those are Night Stalkers. Actual Night Stalkers. And they're playing with her?" "I have eyes, Lieutenant. But it's impossible. We've lost entire scouting parties to Night Stalker packs. They're apex predators. They don't do whatever this is." Ithixal had to agree, much as it galled him to admit confusion. He'd served in the elite guard for 20 cycles, had seen strange things in the deep jungle, but nothing like this. The human, female, his scanners indicated, though alien biology was always uncertain, moved among the cubs with casual ease. She'd just finished repairing some external component when the smallest cub, the pale one with the splinted leg, head-butted her in the back, hard enough to make her stagger. The human turned, made a sound that might have been laughter or exasperation. The translators were still calibrating to her language patterns, and scratched behind the cub's ears. The cub's color-shifting fur rippled through pleased shades of blue-green. "How?" Geronim breathed. "How is she doing that?" "Unknown." Ithixal zoomed in closer. "But we need to understand. The Wrath Guild has been escalating their raids. If this human has some technology, some method of controlling Night Stalkers, you think it's a weapon? I think it's something." Ithixal adjusted his position, scales rustling softly. "Something we need to either acquire or neutralize." Below, Ellen had moved to the cargo bay, checking inventory with the efficiency of someone who'd done this particular dance before. All 3 cubs followed her like oversized, deadly ducklings. When she sat down to eat, some kind of compressed ration bar, they arranged themselves around her in a protective formation that would have been adorable if they weren't baby apex predators. "She feeds them," Geronim noted, watching as the human broke off pieces of her food to share. "Is that the secret? Food? We've tried feeding Night Stalkers before. They ate the food, and then the people offering it." Ithixal didn't answer immediately. He was watching the human's body language, the way she moved without fear or aggression. No dominance displays, no submission gestures, just interaction. Like she considered the cubs equals rather than threats or tools. Strange. Very strange. The situation became stranger when the adult Night Stalkers returned at midday. Ithixal's entire unit tensed. Weapons ready despite knowing they'd be useless against a full pack. But the adults didn't attack. They dropped freshly killed prey, some kind of herbivore Ithixal didn't recognize, at the human's feet like an offering. The human stared at the carcass, then at the Night Stalkers, then back at the carcass. I can't eat this raw," she said, voice carrying clearly now that the translators had finished their analysis. "I'm not built for that. But, thank you? This is very thoughtful." She sounded baffled. Completely, utterly baffled. The Alpha Night Stalker made a rumbling sound that Ithixal felt in his chest even from this distance. The human seemed to understand something in that sound because she nodded slowly. "Right. For the cubs. Got it. That makes more sense than you bringing me lunch." She dragged the carcass into the shade, impressive strength for her size, and the cubs descended on it with enthusiastic violence. The human retreated to her ship, muttering something about normal cargo runs, and "Why does this always happen to me?" "She's negotiating with them," Geronim said, awe creeping into his voice. "Commander, she's actually negotiating with Night Stalkers." "So it appears." "What do we do?" Ithixal considered their options. The human's distress beacon was active. He could detect it on the standard frequencies. That meant others might come looking. The Wrath Guild monitored those frequencies religiously, always searching for easy salvage. If they found this human first, if they captured her, and whatever secret allowed her to bond with apex predators, the decision crystallized. "We make contact." "Sir? Now, Lieutenant, before someone else does." Ithixal signaled the rest of his unit. "Weapons visible but lowered. We approach as potential allies, not threats. Understood?" 6 voices confirmed in his earpiece. "Good." His team knew discipline. They descended from the trees in formation, making enough noise to alert the human without seeming like they were trying to sneak up on her. Ithixal had planned this carefully. Approach from the east, into the sunlight, so she'd see them clearly. No surprises, no misunderstandings that could turn violent. What he hadn't planned for was the cubs. All 3 Night Stalker cubs positioned themselves between the approaching Nalcari and the human, fur shifting to aggressive reds and oranges, backs arched, claws extended. Baby apex predators they might be, but they were still deadly. The human emerged from her ship at a run, took in the situation at a glance, and did something Ithixal would remember for the rest of his life. She stepped in front of the cubs, put herself between the perceived threat and the predators, protected them instead of using them as shields. "Easy," she said, and Ithixal wasn't sure if she was talking to the cubs or to his unit. "Everyone, just easy. Nobody needs to do anything aggressive here." Ithixal raised one scaled hand, palm forward, universal gesture of peace. "We mean no harm, stranger. I am Commander Ithixal of the Nalcari Elite Guard. You are in our territory." The human looked him up and down, taking in his armor, his weapons, his 6-member team, and let out a long breath that might have been a laugh. "Of course I am. Why wouldn't I be?" She raised her own hands, mimicking his gesture. "I'm Ellen. I crashed here, not intentionally. My ship needed repairs." "We observed." "Yeah, I bet you did." Ellen glanced back at the cubs, who were still tense but no longer actively aggressive. "Listen, I don't want trouble. I'll be gone in 2 days once my engines are fixed. I'm just trying to keep these 3 alive until their parents come back." Joranim couldn't help himself. "Their parents did come back. Last night. We watched." Ellen blinked. "You were watching last night?" "We've been watching since you arrived," Ithixal said. "Which raises questions. How are you alive? How did you approach Night Stalkers without being killed? What technology allows this?" "Technology?" Ellen looked genuinely confused. "I don't have any special tech. They were hurt. I'm a medic. Was a medic. I fixed them up, fed them. Basic first aid and some protein bars. That's it." The silence stretched long enough to be uncomfortable. Ithixal's team exchanged glances. Joranim's jaw hung slightly open. "You're telling me," Ithixal said slowly, "that you tamed 3 Night Stalker cubs and earned the respect of an adult pack using medical supplies and food." "I didn't tame anything. I asked nicely, and they decided not to eat me. Big difference." She said it so matter-of-factly, like it was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. Like everyone could just walk up to apex predators and make friends through basic kindness. Ithixal felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. This human represented something his people had never considered: strength without dominance, influence without force. And if the Wrath Guild learned about her— "We need to talk," he said, privately, "about matters of mutual survival." Ellen studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Sure. Why not? It's not like today could get any weirder." She had no idea how wrong she was. Ellen gestured to the cargo bay's interior, which currently smelled like a combination of ozone, machine oil, and Night Stalker cub. "Make yourselves at home, I guess. Fair warning, if Ghost tries to climb on you, just push him off gently. He thinks everyone's a tree." Ithixal entered cautiously, his team fanning out with practiced efficiency. They kept their weapons holstered but hands ready, soldiers through and through. Ellen could respect that. She'd been one herself once upon a time, before military life had decided to thoroughly kick her teeth in. Whisper growled low in its throat as the Nalcari settled into positions around the bay. Rumble's fur cycled through warning colors. Ghost just stared with those unblinking eyes that Ellen was slowly getting used to. "It's fine," Ellen told them, scratching Whisper's head. "They're not here to cause problems. Right, Commander?" "Correct." Ithixal's scaled features were hard to read, but his tone held something like respect. "Though I admit, watching you command Night Stalkers is disconcerting." "I'm not commanding anything. We have an understanding. They don't eat me, I don't shoot them, everyone wins." Ellen grabbed a ration bar, broke it open. "So, mutual survival. That sounds ominous." Geronim leaned forward, his younger features more expressive than his commander's. "Your distress beacon. You left it active?" "Yeah. Standard protocol for crashes. Why?" "Because the Wrath Guild monitors those frequencies." Ithixal pulled up a holographic display from his wrist unit. "They're a pirate collective. Slavers, raiders, thieves. They've been hitting our settlements for the past 8 cycles, taking resources and captives, and they're very interested in salvage from crashed vessels." Ellen felt her stomach drop. "Let me guess. They picked up my signal. Our sensors detected a Wrath Guild cruiser entering orbit this morning." The hologram showed a ship, ugly, asymmetric, bristling with weapons. "They'll make landfall within 20 hours. Probably less." "Fantastic. Perfect. Love that for me." Ellen ran a hand through her hair, which was doing that thing where it stuck up at weird angles, because she'd slept against alien predators. "And I'm guessing they're not the ask nicely and leave peacefully type?" "They're the kill everyone and take everything type," Geronim said quietly. "We've lost entire families to their raids." Ellen looked at the cubs, then at her half-repaired ship, then at the Nalcari warriors who'd revealed themselves because they understood she was in danger. Something in her chest, the part that had never quite let go of being a soldier, tightened with familiar resolve. "All right," she said. "So we have a mutual problem. You want to stop the Wrath Guild. I want to not die. What are you proposing?" Ithixal's eyes, vertical pupils, she noticed, like Earth's reptiles, locked onto hers. "We protect you and your vessel until repairs are complete. In exchange, you share your tactical knowledge. Human combat doctrine. Your people have a reputation in the wider galaxy for unconventional approaches to warfare." "Unconventional is a polite word for it." Ellen considered. "You realize I'm just a cargo hauler now? I got out of the military specifically because I was tired of combat." "But you were military. It wasn't a question. Your movements, your threat assessment, the way you've secured this position, all professional." Damn, Ellen had forgotten how observant career soldiers could be. "Medic first, but yeah, I did some tactical work before things went sideways." She didn't elaborate. The memories of why she'd left military service were her own business. "Fine. You protect me from space pirates, I'll teach you some human tricks. But I have a condition." "Which is?" Ellen pointed at the cubs. "You help me feed these 3. Do you have any idea how much a growing Night Stalker eats? Because it's a lot. Like a concerning amount." Geronim made a sound that might have been a laugh. Ithixal's mouth twitched, in what could have been amusement or indigestion. Acceptable. They spent the rest of the afternoon in planning, and Ellen had to admit, the Nalcari knew their business. Ithixal's team had already mapped every approach to the crash site, identified choke points, cataloged local fauna that could be leveraged as organic hazards. They were prepared, professional, and perfectly comfortable with the concept of using their environment as a weapon. Human guerrilla tactics, Ellen said, sketching in the dirt with a stick while the cubs napped nearby, rely on three principles: misdirection, psychological warfare, and making the enemy think they're fighting something they're not. Explain misdirection, Ithixal said. You make them look one way while the real threat comes from another. Decoys, false trails, fake objectives. Pirates expect to find a defenseless cargo hauler and easy salvage. So we give them that, on the surface. But underneath, we're setting up a kill zone. Joranim was taking notes on his datapad, stylus moving quickly. And psychological warfare? You get in their heads, make them scared, confused, doubting their intelligence. Humans are really good at this, because we're creative and kind of unhinged when threatened. Ellen drew more lines in the dirt. We use the jungle, the night stalkers. Everything that already makes this planet dangerous, we amplify it. Make the pirates think they've landed in a nightmare. The bioluminescent flora, one of Ithixal's team members, a female named Lyricole, suggested. We could use them for misdirection, create false movement patterns. Exactly. And there are other things. Those acid-spitting plants near the eastern perimeter. We funnel enemies past those. The territorial creatures in the northern sector. We make noise to draw them into pirate paths. Ellen looked up at the Nalcari. You know this terrain. I know human psychology and tactics. Together, we can make this planet eat them alive. The planning session stretched into evening. Ellen found herself warming to the Nalcari. They asked good questions, adapted quickly, and had a sense of honor she'd rarely encountered. When Joranim accidentally sat on Ghost's tail and immediately apologized to the cub with genuine remorse, Ellen decided she liked these lizard people. They shared a meal as darkness fell. The Nalcari had brought field rations that looked like compressed vegetables and smelled like spices Ellen couldn't name. She offered them her protein bars in return. Joranim tried one, made a face, and diplomatically said it was interesting. Lying to be polite, Ellen said. I respect that. It tastes like recycled cardboard, Joranim admitted. It is recycled cardboard, with nutrients added. The cubs woke as adult night stalkers materialized from the jungle. Silent arrival that made even Ithixal's veterans tense. But the massive predators simply settled into their protective perimeter, amber eyes watching the mixed group of humans and Nalcari with something that might have been curiosity. They accept your presence, Ellen told Ithixal. Because you're with me, probably, I think. I'm honestly making this up as I go. That's comforting, Ithixal said dryly. Ellen grinned. Welcome to human tactics, Commander. Half planning, half improvisation. All chaos. As night deepened and the bioluminescent patches painted the jungle in alien colors, they finalized their plan. Traps were placed. Routes were mapped. The Nalcari would take positions in the trees, their natural advantage. Ellen would coordinate from the ship, using her technical knowledge to disrupt pirate communications and sensors. And the Night Stalkers? Well, the Night Stalkers would do what apex predators did best. One question, Joranim said as they were finishing. What happens if this works? After the pirates are dealt with and your ship is repaired? Ellen looked at the young lieutenant, then at Ithixal, then at the strange alliance forming in her cargo bay. I guess we figure that out when we get there. For now, let's just focus on not dying. A reasonable priority, Ithixal agreed. Above them, beyond the canopy, a Wrath Guild cruiser broke through the upper atmosphere. In the ship's command center, a Golvian mercenary named Rexma studied the readings from the distress beacon and smiled with too many teeth. Easy salvage, he thought. The easiest kind. He had no idea what was waiting in the jungle below. None of them did. Dawn broke with false calm. Ellen stood in the cargo bay, checking her weapon for the 8th time while Ghost chewed on her bootlace. Whisper and Rumble were with their parents, somewhere in the perimeter. The adult Night Stalkers had taken the cubs away an hour ago, presumably to keep them safe from what was coming. Ellen tried not to feel abandoned and failed miserably. "Ship incoming," Ithixal's voice crackled through her comm. "Visual confirmed. It's Wrath Guild configuration, just as we thought." Ellen watched through her external cameras as the pirate vessel descended through the canopy, thrusters scorching vegetation. Ugly ship. Brutal design. The kind of craft built for intimidation and violence in equal measure. It landed roughly 300 meters north, right where they'd expected, the only clearing large enough to accommodate it. "Count?" Ellen asked. "Scanners show 12 life signs disembarking." Geronim's voice now, tight with tension. "They're armed, moving in standard raid formation." "Amateurs," Ellen muttered. "Standard formation in unknown jungle? They deserve what's about to happen." She activated the first trap remotely, a sonic emitter buried near the pirate's approach vector. The device hummed at frequencies designed to attract every territorial creature within half a kilometer. Nothing happened immediately, but Ellen knew patience. The jungle would deliver. Through the camera feeds, she watched the pirates advance. A dozen mixed species, Golvians mostly, thick-skinned brutes with bad attitudes, but also a few others. Humans, actually, which made Ellen's jaw tighten. Traitors to their own kind, working for slavers. She felt zero sympathy for what was coming their way. Leading them was the largest Golvian she'd ever seen. Armor painted with kill marks, carrying a plasma rifle that could punch through ship plating. Rexma, if their intelligence was right. Guild enforcer with a reputation for extreme violence. "Welcome to Olari 6, Ellen whispered. "Population, you're about to regret everything." The first strike came from the jungle itself. A pack of something. Ithixal had called them razorbacks, territorial omnivores with tempers like solar flares, charged from the undergrowth. The sonic emitter had done its job. 3 pirates went down in the initial rush, screaming as the creatures tore into them with tusks and claws. The pirates scattered, firing wildly. The razorbacks retreated, objective accomplished. Chaos and fear established. "Now the bioluminescence," Ellen said into her comm. Lyra Cole and 2 others activated their devices. The carefully positioned mirrors and reflectors made the jungle's natural light show into a disorienting nightmare. Glowing patches appeared to move, creating false silhouettes. Phantom threats everywhere. Pirates fired at shadows, wasted ammunition on illusions. "They're splitting up," Geronim reported. 3 moving east, 4 continuing south toward your position, 5 heading west. "Perfect." Ellen pulled up the trap locations on her display. "East group is about to meet the acid spitters. West group gets the pit traps. South group, that's mine." She grabbed her rifle, old military issue, well-maintained because some habits died hard, and moved to a prepared position outside the cargo bay. The auto-repair drones were still working on the Ghost's engines, oblivious to the chaos. Ellen had maybe 6 hours before the ship could fly. 6 hours to survive. The Eastern group's screams echoed through the jungle as they stumbled into the acid-spitting plant cluster. Ellen didn't watch. She'd seen chemical burns before and had no desire to see them again. Western group found the pit traps. Simple, effective. lined with stakes made from local hardwood that could punch through light armor. More screaming. Pirates were loud when they died. The southern group, her group, consisted of Rexma and 3 others. They'd learned from their companions' mistakes and were moving carefully now, scanning for threats. Smart. Unfortunately for them, Ellen had been trained by people who made paranoia into an art form. Ithixal, they're in position Alpha, she said quietly. Confirmed. Engaging. The Nalcari dropped from the trees like scaled nightmares. Silent. Fast. Absolutely lethal. 2 pirates died before they knew they were under attack. The third got a shot off. Plasma bolt that scorched a tree trunk before Geronim's blade found his throat. Rexma survived because he was good. Fast reactions, better instincts. He rolled behind cover, firing suppression bursts that forced the Nalcari back into the canopy. "Human!" he roared, and his translator gave the word, "Wait." "I know you're here. Show yourself." Ellen stayed hidden. Let him yell. Angry enemies made mistakes. "Your beacon brought us. Easy salvage, we thought." Rexma fired at movement, a branch swaying, nothing more. "But you've made this difficult. I respect that. So here's my offer. Surrender now. I'll kill you quick. Painless. That's mercy in my business." "That's real generous," Ellen called back, not revealing her position. "But I'm going to decline. Turns out I'm attached to being alive." Rexma's laugh was ugly. "Attached to those animals too, I hear. My scanners picked up Night Stalkers. You're a beastmaster? Useful skill. Worth more alive than dead." Ellen's blood went cold. He knew about the cubs, about her connection to them. "Too bad," Rexma continued, "that we already found their nest. 3 cubs, all alone while the adults protect you. Shame if something happened to them." He was bluffing. Had to be bluffing. The adults had taken the cubs somewhere safe, somewhere hidden. Ghost's scream cut through the jungle. High-pitched, terrified, distinctly the sound of a cub in pain. Ellen's tactical training evaporated. She moved without thinking, breaking cover, racing toward the sound. Stupid. Unprofessional. Exactly what Rexma wanted. She knew it was a trap, and ran into it anyway because that was Ghost screaming, and she'd be damned before she let anyone hurt her cubs. She burst into a clearing and found Rexma holding Ghost by the scruff, the cub's splinted leg dangling uselessly. His plasma rifle was pressed against Ghost's head. "There you are," Rexma said. "Drop the weapon." Ellen's rifle clattered to the ground. Her mind raced, calculating angles, distances, probabilities. All bad. Ghost whimpered, looking at her with those wide eyes that had watched her with such trust. "Good human. Smart human." Rexma's finger tightened on the trigger. "Now, you're going to—" Whisper hit him from the left. Rumble from the right. Both cubs moving in perfect coordination, grown impossibly fast and deadly in the past days. Ghost twisted in Rexma's grip. The splint was fake, Ellen realized. The injury healed enough for the cub to fight, and sank teeth into the Gulvian's wrist. Rexma howled, dropping both cub and rifle. Ellen dove for her weapon, came up firing. Her first shot took him in the shoulder, her second in the leg. The third would have been center mass, but Whisper was already there, claws and teeth doing what evolution had designed them to do. The Baivio, other adult Night Stalkers emerged from the jungle like smoke given form. Not just the cubs' parents, an entire pack, at least 10 adults, all responding to the cubs' distress calls. They'd been waiting, watching, ready to protect what they'd somehow decided was theirs to protect. Rexma never stood a chance. Ellen turned away, gathering the cubs to her. "You 3 are the worst. Absolutely the worst. That was terrifying and manipulative, and she hugged them, her voice cracking. And you saved my life. The cleanup was quick. The surviving pirates, 3 of them, wounded and terrified, surrendered to Ithixal's unit. The Wrathguild ship sat abandoned in its clearing. Ellen's ghost was finally flight-ready, the auto-repair drones chirping completion. "You could stay," Geronimo said as Ellen loaded the last of her supplies. The young Nalcari had grown on her during their short acquaintance. "We could use someone like you, someone who understands both combat and whatever this is." He gestured at the Night Stalkers lounging around the crash site. "Tempting," Ellen admitted, "but I've got cargo to deliver, a reputation to maintain. Can't let people think I'm unreliable just because I crash-landed and fought off space pirates." Ithixal approached, holding something, a small metallic disc etched with symbols. "For you, a Nalcari honor token. It grants you safe passage through our territories. And more, it's a beacon. If you return, we'll know. We'll welcome you." Ellen took it, touched despite herself. "I'll file a report with human authorities. Get you proper diplomatic contact. We should probably have formal relations anyway." "We would appreciate that." The hardest part was saying goodbye to the cubs. They understood somehow that she was leaving. Whisper pressed against her legs. Rumble purred loud enough to vibrate her bones. Ghost just stared with those unblinking eyes. "Be good," Ellen told them, scratching behind 3 sets of ears. "Grow big. Stay alive. And maybe don't befriend the next random alien who crashes here. You got lucky with me." The adult Night Stalkers watched from a distance, amber eyes tracking her movements. The Alpha, the massive one that could have killed her that first night, dipped its head in what Ellen chose to interpret as respect. Ellen climbed into the Ghost's cockpit, ran through pre-flight checks with hands that wanted to shake. The ship lifted smoothly, engines humming their relief at finally leaving this jungle behind. As she broke atmosphere, Ellen pulled up her report template and stared at the blank screen. How did she even begin to explain this? Military engagement with pirates. Check. First contact with indigenous species. Check. Befriending apex predators and coordinating multi-species defensive operations. Where was the box for that? Minor wildlife encounter, she typed eventually. Made local friends. Ship repair delayed due to unforeseen complications. Recommend formal, diplomatic outreach to Nalcari species. Coordinates attached. She sent the report, leaned back in her chair, and let herself breathe. A sound from the cargo bay made her freeze. A very familiar chirping sound. Ellen closed her eyes. "No. Please no." She activated the cargo bay camera. Ghost sat among her supply crates, looking extremely pleased with itself. "You have got to be kidding me," Ellen said to the empty cockpit. "You're a stowaway? Really? Your parents are going to be furious. I'm going to be arrested for cubnapping. This is—" Ghost chirped again and began investigating a box of spare parts. Ellen looked at the view screen, at the stars stretching ahead, at the coordinates she'd set for the outer colonies. She looked at the cargo bay feed, at the cub who'd decided that Ellen was definitely more interesting than staying on some boring jungle planet. "Fine," she said finally. "Fine, you can stay. But you're getting a job. Cargo inspection. Security. Something useful. And when you're big enough to eat me, we're going to have a serious conversation about boundaries." Ghost knocked over a container of bolts and pounced on them like they were prey. "This is fine," Ellen told the universe. "This is a completely normal development. Just a woman, her cargo ship, and her illegally acquired alien apex predator. Nothing weird about this at all." The Ghost jumped to faster than light and Ellen began composing a very different report. One requesting information on interstellar regulations regarding keeping night stalkers as companions, pets, partners. She had no idea what the right word was. Behind her, in the cargo hold, Ghost curled up among the crates and purred itself to sleep. And somewhere on Olari 6, Commander Ithixal filed his own report about the strange human who'd crashed into their lives, fought beside them, and somehow made friends with everything, even things that should have eaten her. The galaxy, he wrote, should prepare itself. If this Ellen was any indication of her species, humanity was going to be a force unlike anything the stars had seen before. He had no idea how right he was.